There's a lot more awareness in it now. Instead of I am a failure and that being like a guiding feeling, instead it's like there are feelings of being a failure, and then you have the space to work with it of these feelings of failure are popping up. What's that about? And then doing the work to work with it. Versus just like I'm a failure, and just moving from that place of that anxious it's very sticky, you know? Like a lot of those trickier emotions can be so sticky, but then like instead of identifying with that emotion so much, we are noticing the space that it's taking up or that it's showing up. And it's like,
hello, my beautiful people. This is the Nereyda Ramirez podcast. I'm the host, Nereyda, a speaker, meditation teacher, life coach, world traveler, and so much more. On this podcast, we will discuss things from the small moments in our days to the biggest realizations in our lives. We will have deep conversations about our passions, our dreams, our careers, everything about spirituality, and further share our human experience through storytelling. From the presence of fear and doubt to our journey of self-love and healing. This is a space where we embrace everything about being human, where curiosities get explored out loud, and where you will feel inspired, supported, and accepted. Thank you for joining me, and welcome to the Nereyda Ramirez podcast. Hello, vibrant souls. Welcome back to another episode of the Nereyda Ramirez podcast. Like always, I'm so grateful they're here, and I'm so grateful to be sharing this episode with you as a beautiful and lovely friend of mine, Erin Adams, will be joining me on this episode today. And we have so much to share, and she has so much knowledge and wisdom and so much goodies to share as well. But before I bring her on, I would love to share with you who she is and a little bit more about what she does. So Erin Adams is a certified mindfulness meditation teacher, entrepreneur, social worker, and self-proclaimed curator of vibes. She is the founder of Traditional Wisdom, a line of grass-fed and humanly-grazed tallow-based skin care, and apothecary. She is also the founder of Open Hearts and Resilient Minds, in which her mission is to share the benefits of mindfulness meditation with all who are ready to live with a greater sense of ease, clarity, and compassion in the present moment. She is especially passionate about sharing the practice with those in high-stress environments or at risk of burnout, including, but not limited to, corporate settings, social workers, first responders, military and medical personnel, veterans, teachers, individuals experiencing homelessness, and survivors of domestic violence. Through the lens of mindfulness, Erin meets life's unpredictable paths with wisdom and compassion, turning challenges into opportunities for growth. As you can tell, you guys know why she is a really lovely and beautiful friend of mine. So with all of that said, here is the episode with Erin Adams. And we are recording. So hey guys, welcome to another podcast episode of the Nereyda Ramirez podcast. And I'm so excited because I have Erin Adams, which you already heard the introduction at the start. But Erin Adams is here with me, and she's done a tea time with me before. And I'm so excited that she's back because the last tea time that we did was during COVID. And it was like 4 years ago, and so much has changed. Like, so much has changed. I'm sure mentally, emotionally, spiritually, in our lives, like every little thing has changed since then. So I'm so excited to have you on here and on a podcast episode.
I feel like I've lived multiple lives since then.
Yeah. And I know one thing that I'm pretty sure still stays very true to your heart, and we've talked about it before too, and it's going to be the talk of this podcast episode is meditation. Right? And I'm pretty sure your practice has only gotten deeper and more intimate and would you love to share about that?
Sure. The practice itself, it's not designed to stay on the cushion. So we build the habit and have that place to ground and set that foundation. But it's really key to everyday life. And so all of life's, tribulations, ups and downs and celebrations, etc., being able to incorporate that into everything makes it all kind of like a dance.
Yeah, like a dance. Yeah. So I don't know, for people who haven't maybe heard us talk or didn't listen to the tea time or don't know, right, like our relationship or friendship, we actually met on an online meditation teacher training class, Dharma Moon. And out of all the people, like I've talked to Noelle, some of the teachers, I have them on social media, but the only other student that I've stayed really connected with is you. So I don't even know how the heck we got connected through the online freaking class in the middle of COVID, but I'm so curious to hear how your meditation has changed from you taking that certificate or that meditation teacher training class to now.
It's a good question. I think, we always have to come back to having a beginner's mind. That was my true beginner's mind. And so now it's always having to remind myself to have a beginner's mind. I think it was just a lot more fresh. I feel like I've learned a lot more of the, putting it into practice and using it in everyday life.
Okay.
Instead of this is what I do, I have my room set up like this and I have this cushion and this is what needs to be happening during my practice. It's no, like, whatever's going on, like, just sit or just pay attention on purpose without judgment. and
Oh,
or just coming back to it even during interactions, whether we're talking to a family member, a spouse, a client, things of that nature, being able to recall the practice mid interaction to bring us back to being present, it's super helpful. It's like my lifeline because it's so easy to be somewhere else or to be caught up in, maybe some anxiety or, the thoughts of what need to be done after this. And so it's an everyday practice. It's never one and done. It's never perfect. And learning how to let go of control, I think, really comes with time and continual practice and more experiences. There's always like this urge or something to try and control the practice or to desire a specific outcome when it's just a continual process of letting go over and over again.
Yeah, I totally agree. Since the class, like I've done a couple of those like 40-day daily devotion practices where I wake up in the morning and that's like the first thing I do, or just make sure that I do some kind of practice. But it's so interesting as you're saying that because it has been very much like let me sit on my pillow and meditate. Like let me sit still for like at least 10 minutes to some type of music. But it's so interesting because when I do that kind of practice, it does remind me that like, oh wait, meditation it could be every second, not just on your meditation pillow.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I think, which I really would love to talk to you about and like brainstorm is what do people think meditation is and what is it actually? Right? Because I know when I first started meditation, it felt like it was very much sit on your pillow, stay quiet, don't say anything, and just follow the voice of the teacher or the YouTube video or the music. And that's like the goal. Right. And then as I got more into it, it was like, oh, hold on, like that's not it. It's part of it, but it's not the whole thing. And some people have mentioned, like, I don't do meditation because I can't just sit still. Like, no, I don't do meditation because I don't have those 10 minutes. So what do you think? Or
Me
what
either.
have you thought? Like, yeah.
Me either.
So it's like, well, yeah, like, what have you thought meditation was? And it isn't.
I would say, early on in my life when meditating, it's like, I don't know what I thought it was. I thought, it was more so just trying to create some ease or peaceful feeling or relaxed state, or attempting to achieve some state of higher consciousness. And not that those things can't come into fruition, but learning to let go of that as a goal is, I think it's important, because it's not always going to be that. Sometimes it's going to be full of agitation and full of the monkey mind, and then we notice that aggression. Hopefully then it helps us to notice that aggression or that irritation, to be like, okay, aggression, irritation. And so just noticing it. But there's so many different kinds of meditation. We know that. There's metta practices and other compassion practices. There's like pranayama. And of course, what we specialized in our teaching was mindfulness meditation. And so that in itself is really just paying attention on purpose without judgment, which is like the most simple way I've ever heard it explained. And so even remembering that through our day-to-day, it's paying attention. It's, I've talked to a wide variety of people in so many different circumstances. And sometimes when they're in situations where there's so many people around all the time and it's a chaotic environment, they're like, there's no way I can possibly do it. And so, and I've heard, I think it was Sharon Salzberg once who said, like, one of the great things about it using our breath as a focal point is that it's extremely potable. So we can bring it with us wherever we go. If we're breathing, we have the access to the practice. So it's just, whatever is going on around us, if we can simply notice our breath, we're really doing it. And then, of course, learning how to cultivate some sort of gentleness, I'd say, is the ground, because we can notice and then still beat ourselves up and trash talk ourselves consciously or subconsciously. But the more that we take the time to notice, then there starts to become some room for awareness to arise of like, oh, I'm a real asshole to myself. Like, what's that about? Or, or just getting curious about it, or where is all this coming from? And, getting curious about the whole human experience.
Yeah. One of the things that I got reminded of as you were sharing is that during when I travel, like, I practice connecting to my breath when I'm in the airports, like what you were sharing about, like, a lot of people. And it's one of the things that I do, like, as I pass through TSA, just because I feel the energy of everybody, and it feels like everybody's on this go, 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 and it's like they're going here, they're going there, and in some aspects, it also feels like I could feel their thoughts, right? So it's I love being at the airport, by the way, but it's a practice when I'm going through TSA and just walking up, like, okay, connect to my breath, stay grounded with my feet on the floor, and I take my time. Like, I have so much patience at the airport, and sometimes I walk around thinking I'm the teacher of patience for other people. And it's just...
I love airport practice, and sometimes, like mantras or just coming back to the breath over and over. It's like, I also think it's one of those, like, this is the practice, because it's so easy to get caught up in the rush. And like I'll check my gate 50,000 times. Like, I'm going to forget it in the board. And then I'll still come back to the breath, check the boarding time, over and over. But like last time I went through the airport, I refused the x-ray machine. And so I had to like wait to get felt up. And then there, like, I was like,
center of attention.
I'm just like, this is the practice.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's just like coming back to the breath. And I'm just like this goof who's just like, yeah, no big deal. I came here early so I didn't have to rush, or it's fine. Whatever happens, it'll be fine.
Of it.
I feel like sometimes I have like this goofy, relaxed face when everyone is just go, go, go on a mission at the airport oftentimes, or they're just waiting often, like, anxiously for their flight to get started already.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I hear a lot about...
Say again?
Sorry, I was going to say, I hear a lot about airport practice.
Yeah? Okay. I feel like that's probably like a really good place to practice mindfulness and connecting to our breath. Yeah. It reminds me of Ram Dass when he shared a story of like wanting to go to, and I might like butcher it a little bit, but about, oh no, it was Krishna Das, where it was like the story of like wanting to go to the Himalayas and like meditate and like that's where it's at, right? Like the enlightenment or the practice. And I don't know if it was Baba or Ram Dass or, but somebody had mentioned like, no, the practice is in your apartment in New York City when there's a lot of noise around. Like that's when you like that's the practice. Like how can we be in those spaces when there's a lot of noise around?
Yeah.
Because it's easy, right? Like it's easy when there's nothing else going on and we can just sit there, or I don't know, not even just sit there, but have like a practice when we think it's peaceful and it's calm and we're peaceful and we're calm. But it's like the real challenge is like how can I bring that practice when things are being or things are there's so much chaos around
Yeah.
or just so much of that energy around.
Yeah. I imagine if if we limit our practice to our perfectly curated space and environment, everything to be just so, then as soon as we step outside and step in dog shit, everything will go out the window
Yeah,
immediately.
yes. It's like there goes like my perfect life.
I think
I,
the practice is made for that.
yeah. Well, I think it also brings up where I could imagine it being so anxiety ridden, where if that's the only time we practice is when life is going great, it just causes that much more anxiety when life is not going great, or more of a resistance of some sort.
Yeah. You
I
brought
think.
up Neem Karoli Baba, and I think of like when he said like suffering is grace. Was it him who said that? I'm not
I
sure who
don't
said.
remember.
I could be wrong about that, but like if you've heard like suffering is grace almost. In
Um,
one hand, we could see that as like when we're able to go through these like roller coasters of life, it gives us an opportunity to practice,
yeah,
and that we can almost appreciate it in that way.
yeah, it's
Not that
true.
there's not a number of ways that could be interpreted, but that's one way to see it, I think.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to that too, because I mean, many details, but just like I guess on the little surface level of the last couple of months, there's been so much that's been happening on in my little big life. And it was so interesting how for years I've been practicing like mindfulness or these spiritual truths of Baba or Ram Dass or other spiritual leaders that I do follow. It was so interesting how it really came through full force like these last couple of months in my life. Where I think for a long time it was like, okay, I'm gonna practice it and I'm gonna meditate and like whatever it was or chant or whatever. And this time it just felt so natural to have that as a default of, oh, I'm gonna do my practice or oh, this is my core belief now. Right. Where it's like what's one of them? Oh man, I can't think of them right now. But like I know failure popped up. And this time it felt like it was easy, not easy, right? But it was in a sense, I don't want to say easy, but what's another word? Not that it was easy, but I was able to feel it and ride the wave of feeling like a failure,
Mm.
but the quickness to bounce back in a sense of, "Oh, hold on, like, failure doesn't exist," or "It has a purpose," or "There's a higher power guiding me," was, like, so much more present than it has before. Where before it felt like it would drag itself, and it'd be days or it'd be weeks, and it's, like, this constant, like, almost anxiety of, like, run-on thoughts and my worth and all these things, and this last year, it felt like it was really put into practice of, like, "Oh, hold on, like, in it. I'm recognizing that I'm in it and it's okay. Like I see how it led up to that point, and then it was this, oh, I can get out of it. Like, hold on, like I think of failure as, it's like I'm being successful in terms of like I'm trying something that I want to try and it just didn't work. Right. Or oh, hold on, like the universe is guiding me a different way. As before, it wasn't a default. It was like, oh, like, come on. Like how do I believe this is true for me?
There's
If
a
that
lot more awareness in it now. Instead
yeah.
of I am a failure and that being like a guiding feeling, instead it's like there are feelings of being a failure, and
Yeah.
then then you have the space to work with it of these feelings of failure are popping up. What's that about? And then doing the work to work with it.
Yeah.
Versus just like, I'm a failure, and just moving from that place of that anxious that it's very sticky, you know? Like a lot of those trickier emotions can be so sticky, but then like instead of identifying with that emotion so much, we're noticing the space that it's taking up or that it's showing up.
Yeah.
And it's like creating room for evolution, almost like, I mean, something always is going to pop up, and then what happens? We work it out, and then we grow.
Yeah.
Like,
but it totally ties back to what you were saying about like when we do practice our meditation where we observe what's arising within us, right? Where it's like, oh, like it's not always just joy and like peaceful, and sometimes it is going to be anger and other emotions, and it's like, okay, like I'm witnessing it, like it's present and it's here.
Yeah. Less I am angry and more there is anger.
Yeah.
And anger has its place, for sure.
Yeah. This past year I did this meditation. I was like super, super pissed, right? Like super angry. And I sat down and I did this like 45-minute just like meditation. And it popped up. I was like, oh, I'm just really, really sad. And it's like I could not see that at all. Like just in my regular day of living. But in my meditation pillow, it popped up where it's like, oh, I'm just really, really sad and heartbroken. Yeah.
It's this incredible capacity to make room for our hearts to open. It takes a lot of discipline because it's sometimes being angry is a lot easier than being sad or facing the feeling like head on, in such a raw way. Like, when I think of like, going through burnout or compassion fatigue, and it's like having those walls, like just being irritated at everything is sometimes easier than like coming back to the cushion, sitting with it, allowing the heart to open, and then just sobbing about the whole thing.
Yeah. That's like very vulnerable. It's very raw.
But we're here to do the work. So
I agree.
I
totally agree.
Sometimes it might take a minute, but I think, if we're committed to being on that path, then we're going to get there, and we don't have to beat ourselves up the whole time, and give ourselves grace, and knowing, like there every single time, well, I won't say every single time. I used to say every single time, but a lot of the times when I sit or I'm noticing like this resistance to my sitting practice, I sit down and I'm like, all right, like what am I avoiding?
Oh, okay.
Because a lot of times whatever resistance is, like, it's actually me avoiding something that I'm like not prepared, or avoiding feeling something.
Okay.
Because it takes courage to feel so deeply.
Yeah. But even that awareness too of being able to say, oh, like I feel the resistance, or I feel this, like what am I avoiding? Because that also takes a lot of accountability or awareness to be able to ask yourself that question. Because it's scary to ask yourself that question and it be like, yes, I'm actually avoiding something. Because then what the fuck do you do? It's like, oh crap, okay.
Yeah. And I feel like sometimes just sitting with the agitation can be a practice in itself, or like sitting with that resistance or sitting with the agitation of it can be its own practice.
Yeah. I'm curious to ask you, and if you're comfortable, do you want to guide us through a breathwork exercise? We're talking about how we can do and connect to our breath anywhere, so this is like a good moment if you'd like.
Yeah, so it's not like the pranayama is more like in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. I teach mindfulness, which is really just noticing the breath, paying attention to it, and learning to notice what comes up without judgment. And so just learning how to remind yourself to have that gentle attitude. So, if we take our posture and take our time setting that up, we say upright but not uptight. I know you can't see my full body, but I'm sitting on a cushion right now. A lot of times when I teach, just based on the setting, I'm teaching from a chair. in any case. And you can also like sit on the cushions, or sometimes they have those benches that are built for it so you can sit like horsey style, kneeling on cushions or a block. In any case, it's best to have your hips just slightly above your knees. And if you're able to not have anything supporting your back, but everybody has different, mobilities and abilities. And so, this is your practice. You have full autonomy over it. And so whatever you need, we can notice the difference between pain and discomfort. We might be able to sit with discomfort, like if our knee itches or there's a bug flying around, we might be able to sit with that, but it's a gentle practice. So if our feet are going numb or we're in any sort of significant pain, just adjust and take a fresh start at any point. And so when we place our attention on our breath, we can sometimes we notice it coming in and out of the nose and between the upper lip. Sometimes we might notice it in the chest if we're particularly anxious or we just ran here. Sometimes we might notice the rising and the falling of the abdomen. Or we might notice the cycle of the breath just throughout the whole body. I think if we were able to hear the blood moving through our veins, we would place our attention on that. But sometimes the breath is as close as we can get. And so sometimes it helps to tuck our chin just slightly so that it's parallel with the floor to get that length in our spine. Setting up our posture helps us prevent our body from screaming at us, so we can sit for a little bit longer. And then with our eyes, it's typically a soft gaze, maybe 4 to 6 feet out in front of us. Not looking at anything in particular. Just sort of, so we're not moving our eyes, wandering around the room. And just notice the breath. Think of it as sitting more like a house plant rather than a statue. So we're not overly aggressively, like one of those guards outside of like the palace. Just upright. And when thoughts arise, just notice them and come back. Doesn't matter what they are. There's no good thoughts, no bad thoughts. They're all just thoughts. The goal is not to control our thoughts or stop all of our thoughts. Just to simply notice. We can come back to our breath. We don't have to follow the stories behind them. We might notice some of the sensations that arise in the body when they come up. But we can always just touch them and then come right back to the breath. It's not about being a good meditator or a better person or better anything. bring it to a close. Feel free to adjust your body as needed. Stretch out. I know that was brief, but hopefully it gave an opportunity to either notice any agitation that might arise or noticing what it feels like to just settle. I recently was reading Pema Chodron's book, How We Live is How We Die. And she gave this great example. She was in like this silent meditation retreat, and everyone was talking about the gap, like the gap between the thoughts and everything. And she felt, this state of poverty, like she wasn't experiencing this, and it might have been early on in her practice. And I think she was frustrated of like, what is this gap, And all of a sudden, so there was like a fan blowing or an air conditioning going while they were in practice, and all of a sudden it stopped. And then she was like, that's it. And not that the fan hasn't gone and stopped in the past, but all of a sudden it was like noticing what settles in that like, pause. And I relate to that a lot. It's like, and we can let go of the goal of our practice every time. But with practice, we start to notice the space in between the thoughts. And then as soon as we notice, then it's gone, of course. But we start to notice it. And it's like, I totally relate to like all of a sudden the AC stops. And you're like, whoa, that's a big difference. So I think that is a really good way of explaining sort of what the gap can feel like. But again, we don't need to chase that. Just with practice, it'll come.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you so much, Erin, for doing that practice.
My pleasure.
Yeah, with the gap, I've felt it before, and it feels when I've been in those spaces like I'm floating in the water. But it feels very gentle, but it's like in some ways it feels like nothing exists, and it feels very empty, but then full, but then expansive, and it's like, okay. And I love being there, but it's true, right? Like sometimes the moment that we're in it is just boom. And I think the moments for me when it goes away, I think when my ego kicks in, like, oh, like I'm here, and then done. Done.
Yeah, it's like that's like the very natural state, or this like clear state of being. And just being able to tap into that, it's such I want to say it's like a respite from all of the projections that we put on our lives.
Yeah.
And so, just, because we're always coming up with ideas for what's next, or reminiscing or ruminating about other things. And so it's just like pausing.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, because I know you're the founder of Open Hearts and Resilient Minds, and we're on this topic. Can you tell us a little bit of what that is, and what does that entail?
So the name kind of came to me. So I spent, 10 or so years working as a social worker in child welfare. And I ended up finally leaving altogether. I was so burnt out, compassion fatigue, and which it doesn't really, I think there's misconceptions about what compassion fatigue is. I don't think it's lacking in compassion. I just think we've just felt so much that it just hurts too much to continue to feel so deeply. And so it leads to this state of struggling to take care of ourselves and meet our own needs, because we've given everything and we have nothing left to give, or so it feels. So having been through that, and in that experience, it felt, and I've had many, over that 10 years, there were many cycles of it, many times of fighting through it, or, it reached a breaking point, and then time to switch jobs, still in that field. But just, I've been through that numerous times, but it was just kind of like, I've had enough. And I really thought I was never going to go back to social work again. one way to describe what my experience was it felt like my reaction wasn't always matching the situation, or at least in terms of for being a professional and needing to maintain some sort of composure. It felt like I didn't have quite so much control, or what we know about, prolonged states of high stress. It has the ability to, of course, create anxiety in the body, but also it can impair our cognitive functioning, our decision-making skills, and a whole host of other issues. And I had times where I started doubting myself, and that's just a role and a position that I always, had on such a high pedestal, where I'm like, there's no room for, questioning your decision making here, or there's no room for error. Not that everyone in that role isn't a human, but it can also come with that sort of like martyr type of mentality, or that, overly heightened state of importantness. I'm wording it kind of strange, but like not really considering room for being human, but also I wasn't willing to, I'm like, I hit a breaking point, and I'm like, I'm not willing to be in this position if I am not able to trust myself, especially with something I take so seriously. And so I was out, I was done. And I ended up, while I was doing a very briefly, I was like a project manager for retirement plans. Terrible. It was awful. It was very brief and terrible. But while I was there, is when I discovered Dharma Moon and the 100-hour mindfulness meditation program.
Wow.
Yeah. And whenever I heard about it through Duncan Trussell's podcast, the Duncan Trussell Family Hour, and when David was on, all of a sudden I felt my entire being come alive, and it was just like a full-blown yes. It never ever occurred to me that teaching meditation was an option.
Wow.
I had experienced meditating since like 16 and 17, but it was never consistent or on a solid path. It was a lot of times it was like guided meditations here or different videos here and there. But so that's when I found Dharma Moon, and I just went full head on. The possibility of a career that wasn't social work, of course, like was appealing, but also, being able to deepen my own practice was a huge motivator. Excuse me. And it just, my whole being was just like, yes, like when your spirit like starts ringing bells, and I just, it deepened my connection with myself and what was going on. It really helped me cultivate the space for so many of those feelings to come up and arise, and just still coming back to my body and coming back to the breath, noticing where I feel all those trapped emotions in my body, and then practicing compassion and gentleness for myself was this avenue to be able to actually process and move these stuck emotions through my body. And that's something I would recommend, as long as you feel safe. There's a lot of different ways to handle those emotions, but if you feel safe, it's okay to notice where you feel it in your body, and without following the storyline behind it, just notice and use your breath as that anchor, and practice that gentleness and compassion for those experiences, and that kind of would happen naturally. And then while I was on the path for Dharma Moon and in that training, I ended up bartending full time at a senior living community. And that was the time of my life. It was incredible. I was surrounded by so many grandmas and grandpas, and they weren't there to, get intoxicated. Really, it was about the social connection piece. And me, as somebody who also had a history of social anxiety, especially from peopling so often in so many, wild atmospheres, it was like my instinct was to isolate. And like the more that we go, we think if we're going through like that highly reactive state, or like post-traumatic stress or anything like that, sometimes the the inclination is to isolate. It feels like isolating is the answer, even though in reality we heal in connection. And so that's, you know, a tricky piece. And so I can bartend and put on the bartender show, but I might, you know, I can put on the Erin show, even though sometimes in the background I'm like nervous or anxious. But having this practice and having this breath to come back to, I was able to really be there with the, you know, the residents. And especially like when I had the privilege of living with my grandparents for a couple periods of time throughout my life. And anytime I had to leave the house, I would leave early because they'd always stop me right as I'm about to be out the door and just chat me up. And it was just like, you know, this is you don't cut them off.
Yeah.
You just listen and you just be there. And applying that to, you know, bartending in this community, it was really about the connection for them, and they could feel that. And they were giving that back to me, really, and using my breath to help me ground so I could stay there and stay present in that connection instead of, I've got all these people that want their drink also, I got to keep it moving, but also being able to stay there. And, you know, it's just, to be surrounded by so many like grandmother and grandfather, like, individuals. It was just so much of, Erin, we love you so much. You take such good care of us. And, you know, there's times when I feel clumsy, awkward, my mouth gets dry, my palms are sweaty, and I'm tripping over my words. But again, having the practice helps me remember it's okay. That's just who I am right now. And that's the practice of the gentleness. And, oh yeah, I can come back to my breath. I can continue to look people in the eye and really, really be there with them. I don't have to get lost in what's, you know, brewing under or behind that. I can come back to right now and just stay there. And that's like where that natural, authentic compassion arises. It's in that connection, in that present moment. And it was just like somebody took a crowbar to my heart and like cracked it wide open. And I'm like, this is what open-heartedness feels like.
Oh.
And I was like, this is it. This is what an open heart feels like. I will do everything I can to preserve this and maintain this. And the reality of the situation is that there's times when it closes back up. Like,
of course, yeah.
There's no one and done. It's a practice. Like,
yeah.
You know, after doing that for about a year, which I loved it so much, at the time there was this like battle between my neighbors because these homeless encampments were like coming right up to our door. I mean, the shelter was just behind our building, but my neighbors were fighting about it. And it was also breaking my heart. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And I felt this open heart and feelings, having these tools to be so much more resilient. I was like, I think it's time. And so I was able, you know, I can't return to child welfare. I have done it part-time, and I can have the tools to make it workable, but and instead of just reacting, I'd be like, oh, I'm being triggered. And just out of, you know, again, being gentle enough to know that's not the path for me anymore, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But having this resilience and this strength and this stability and clarity and this wide open heart, I felt strong enough and empowered enough to return to social work, serving adults experiencing homelessness. Wow. And while I was serving at the senior living community, I had, you know, the privilege of serving like the longest held prisoner of war of Vietnam, and another World War II veteran who, you know, was like 97, excited to turn 100, and just like, still like writing a book and doing all these things. And it was just so inspiring that, you know, my role within homeless support is actually supporting our veterans experiencing homelessness. So it's, you know, all that to say, like, burnout and compassion fatigue, like it's come back again and again and again. And so I'm certainly not immune to it. If anything, I'm more prone to it because I've been there. But the difference is that I have the tools. It might take me a minute, but then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, there it is. This is the thing. Okay. Oh yeah, I know what to do.
Yeah.
The first step always comes down to gentleness and having compassion. Yes, it makes sense that you would feel this way, or these walls would get put up, or that you would feel the need to keep someone at arm's length because these things are hard. And so noticing it, coming back to the practice and creating the time to really, really feel it and process it. It does require time, and it requires dedication to that because, as part of being a warrior in the world, it takes so much courage to have such a tender heart.
Yeah.
And so it's the practice.
Yeah. Erin, it's so interesting because when we did our tea time a couple years ago, I think it was like maybe the first time ever that I've heard about compassion fatigue. And maybe from one other person that I also did another tea time, and both of you guys were social workers. And I was just getting into the mental health field. And I learned so much from both of you guys. But it's been 4 years, and now I'm really involved in it. Like, I worked for the county with little kids. Right now I'm working with the elders. Like, I'm back in school for mental health counseling, and I've met people in the field, and it's like, oh shit, like, it's like, I don't think when we talked about it years ago, I don't think I realized like how big it actually was. Like, you emphasized it and you talked about it, and he did too. But I think being in it and seeing it and feeling it from others and even for myself is like, oh shit, like this is a thing, like for sure. And I made friends, and like one of my friends, she's a really good friend now, but she ended up walking away as a therapist. I mean, she's had her own realizations with it, but she's a dance teacher now, and she's like, I love it, like I'm not burnt out, like I'm not this and not that. And it's like, dang, like that takes a lot of bravery and courage to also do this career, be in it, and realize like I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
Right? It's like a total career change. And I just hear it, right, from like other friends where it's a constant battle, like, and it feels like a battle every week. Where it's like you don't even have time for yourself. So it's interesting because like I've talked to this friend that's now a dance teacher, and like I told her, like she knows, right? Like I love hiking, I have my practice and all this stuff, and I was like, luckily, like all of this has already been a part of me that I think without even knowing, like it helps me move through these things that I'm like listening to, or that I've worked with the kids, or like even the schooling part, right? Like I had this class of sexual abuse, and it was sexual abuse and like children. And oh my goodness, like that shit was hard. Right. And it questions like the purpose on earth, it questions like suffering, and yeah, but going back to like the compassion fatigue, it's like, oh yeah, like at the end of the day, like you're feeling drained. And it's that practice of like I have to make sure that I fill my own cup in the mornings before my shift, and that when I close the laptop or I'm leaving, my client's house, it's like it's done. Like, but again, it's like when you feel. I think this whole field has been teaching me more how to just feel, because in some ways, it's like it feels like before I had an option where it's like I don't want to feel that. Like, and it's about family and friends, right? Like my own personal life. And with this, it feels like it's really just up in front of your face, and it's like I don't even have the chance to decide whether I want to feel or not. Like I'm just really, really feeling it. So it's very interesting to just like reflect on the conversations we've had and like be in it, and knowing that it's like a continual practice of what I have to do for myself to to not feel fatigued in a way. But it's inevitable too.
Yeah, when we did our last tea time, I think I was still bartending. That was before I went back to social work, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
What you said about your friend and her going into dance and feeling so fulfilled and maybe a bit lighter with that, I empathize. Like I relate to that also because, we get so tied. Like especially the first 10 years, like I identified so much with my work that it was like I didn't even know who I was outside of my work. It was just like became so ingrained in my identity, and that probably also led to some of that burnout for sure. And so I think there's, part of the practice. It's like, if the practice is every day and every moment, it's knowing, is this a heart matter, or is this an alignment issue? I have that conversation with myself all the time. Is this a matter of the heart? Do I need to open my heart more? Or is this an alignment issue? Sometimes it's both. And
And
so it's okay it would be the gentle thing if recognizing, like, because it's like, oh no, this is so important. This is such important work. Somebody has to do it. I must go on and on. I must fight the good fight. Sometimes that's true, and we have the tools to help us do it.
Well, I'm curious to ask you, even for people who don't know, it's like, what does that entail? Is this an alignment issue or a heart issue? Like, how do you distinguish one or the other?
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. Hey, there's your laughter. There's your laughter. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I know, just relating back to what you're sharing, like, one of the things for me is that, like, I love playing and being in this field. Like, I love being in the field, and it feels like such a calling, but it feels like everything that I love has to be, like, more of it. Yeah. So play, I've always loved playing, and now it feels like I want to play more because of what I listen to or what my job entails. And the other day, actually, it was like a really long day at work. And so I work for the elders now. It's a call center, and they call when they're feeling lonely, or, when they're depressed, or when they're going through whatever issue that they're going through. And it's heartbreaking, right? Like, I've never been in a situation where it's in the front lines almost of what elders have to go through. So it's so new for me. And it really makes me think about, like, my family and me. It's that. And the other day, it was like a really hard day. And like an hour before my shift ended, I texted my boyfriend and I was like, hey, I want to play tonight. Like, it's been a long day. And he was so sweet. Like, he came home with like 2 bottles of wine. Like, he put the candles out and we had some games and we just played. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, it was so, so nice. Yeah. Yeah.
I found that a lot. I'm so grateful. Like, the partner I have right now, he's got small children, and I just like being around them has like this, it pulls so much joy out of me. Like, even if I thought I was exhausted, it just all of a sudden it like flips my heart upside down to where I have this burst of energy just to be like so silly, and it's been very healing.
Oh, how sweet.
But yeah, getting outside, like you have all the best hiking spots these days.
Yeah, heck yeah. So that's like our thing, like every Sunday or now we have like opposite schedules too. So it's been a totally new transition for us where it's like, okay, how do we make sure that our connection is present during the week? Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we came up with was like, oh, like on Sundays we're both off, so let's do dates. And we take turns choosing, but we both love nature, so it's always like somewhere outside. But I think going back to like the compassion fatigue, because I feels like I hear it often, is that it's so important, like you said, to have that identity outside of work, to know what you love so you can go do that outside of work, right? To have like your passions or your hobbies, because it feels like the people that I do know that feel kind of grounded in the work, it's like their work isn't their whole identity. Mm-hmm. Like, work isn't their whole foundation. Yeah. Like, there's more to life than just where you're going those 40 hours a week. And I think that's really, really important when doing some type of work when it comes to like with other people. Yeah. And of course, like doing your own work too, right? Because I think sometimes like those not little, but I say little all the time. Sometimes being in the work could be triggersome And in some ways, it's like, oh, like, what is this about me? Like, it's bringing something within myself. Like, I have to go to my synergist or to my therapist and, like, talk about it.
Yeah.
Which in some ways could be a blessing because it's like, or what is it? Like, I totally forgot. Grist for the mill. Yeah.
Yeah. Having self-care practice, things to look forward to.
Yeah.
You know, I look forward to festival season in the summer.
There you go. Yeah. That's awesome. Erin, well, I did want to touch on like the hormones and the traditional wisdom, but I'm thinking about like doing a whole other podcast and focusing on that. Is that
Absolutely.
cool? Okay.
Yeah.
I feel
I
like
think
that
it sounds a little vague though. It sounds like such a teaser the way you worded that. Like, what?
Perfect.
Hormones and traditional wisdom. What's wrong with her hormones?
Perfect. People will tune in next time.
Everything is good. Everything is wonderful. I promise.
Yeah, that's like a whole podcast within itself because everything is so good. You know, you've inspired me. The other day we went grocery shopping, and a little backstory, I guess, for people, right, who are listening to this. I talked to Erin maybe like last week, and she told me about an app that you scan the barcode and it tells you the ingredients and why it's bad for you, or like what ingredient is bad for you and all this stuff. And we went grocery shopping last weekend, and the whole time I was like, scan. I don't know about this one, like scan, and I forgot to text you. But stay tuned for the next episode because it's going to be about hormones and I can't say it, it's not blockers.
Endocrine disruptors.
Yes. Yeah.
How hormones might be relational.
Yeah. What else, Erin? Tell me, because it's going to be, what else is the next episode going to be about?
Maybe some steps we can take to go down a different path, because right now we have this like epidemic of thyroid issues, PCOS, women's health issues, that it's just becoming more and more widespread. And women in their childbearing age are oftentimes finding struggles with infertility, and and that's something that I have some experience with, but how there are small steps we can take that really do add up. And also when we're speaking our truth, and there's when we think of somatics and things in the body, and what steps we can take to constantly move into a place of authenticity, and how that can heal us, and how the connections with others. And so yeah, I would love to share my story about that sometime.
Yeah, I'm gonna text you after to set another date for it. Well, before we leave, where can people find you?
I can be found on Instagram at Open and Resilient is my Instagram handle. There's a Facebook for that as well. I have my website is openandresilient.com for that, teaching meditation underneath Open Hearts and Resilient Minds. I can also be found through traditionalwisdom.us. And that's we'll get into that at a future podcast, but that's for tallow-based skincare, free of chemicals, and yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for being on this episode. It's so nice to see you again.
It's such a pleasure.
I'm so looking forward to having you again on another episode.
Yeah. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Much love, guys.
Bye.